Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Today we have with us Natalie Robinson Bruner. She is the founder and principal strategist at Glad Ed Solutions. Welcome to the show, Natalie.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here with you and to talk a little bit about, my business and what I do and how I can help your listeners sort of glean from some of the things that I've learned.
Let's start with your business so that our listeners have a sense of who you are and what you do.
So Glad Ed Solutions, we're a professional services organization that provides corporate training, coaching, and consulting, really focusing on company cultures, helping organizations move from burnout to engagement. And so it's an organization that I truly love and just have put my whole heart behind because I understand what it's like to go to a job and either have the best come from it or the worst. And so I want to make sure everyone has that experience of having the best.
With our audience being predominantly business owners, we have obviously some solopreneurs, we have some small business owners, we have some CEOs that have large teams. So there really is the gamut, so to speak. Now, for those individuals who have employees, there is going to be an organic company culture that, if not attended to, may not exactly be the best company culture. So can you talk to us about that? So what are you seeing happening? What happens when somebody at that CEO level down is not being strategic about the culture within their organization?
Right. And it really is about strategy because it becomes a part of your strategy of being productive and reaching your organizational goal. And when you don't manage it, unfortunately, it develops on its own. So it's going to be there. So either it's a helpful culture or it's not a helpful culture. And so to help it get to the kind of culture that supports your goals, you're really going to want to make sure your managers understand what the culture should look like, how to effectively lead, make sure everyone feels included. And when you don't do that, unfortunately, a lot of strong personalities, they come out and they are the ones that sort of lead the culture. And sometimes that can be a good thing and sometimes it can't. But as a leader in your organization, you don't want to leave it up to what may be the strong personality in your organization. You want to make sure that you're directing it in the area you want it to grow so that you can hit your goals.
So I'm curious, when someone hires you, what are you frequently seeing when you get your first glimpse at what's really happening?
Right. So there are usually two extremes that I work with. So there are the companies that they are on the track of being better. They want to be better. They're always trying to be better. So they're growing. And so I love working with them because like, just tell me some more things I can do to be better. They are wonderful. They can use a tweak here or there, some suggestions to get better. And then there are those that are usually in tailspin. And so something's happened and have to come in and sort of help them sort of dig out of the pit that they find themselves in. And unfortunately, those are the situations where I see, leaders who have, again, let those strong personalities sort of play out in negative ways and have not corrected it. And so it's created this culture where there's expectations, but they're not fairly applied. And so people aren't feeling motivated because they don't think that they're going to get a fair shot at work, where there's sort of this uneven distribution of workload. And so a lot of people feel that there's this constant stress that's happening within their environment, and there is no it should really be kind of like there's stress at work, right? It happens sometimes, you got a deadline, but do you need a deadline every day? Let's step back and see what's going on within our processes and the way we work to make sure that this stress does not become a consistent thing on employees and they have the ability to sort of have their own well-being fed into and continue to maintain to help them to be re-energized so that they can come back and do an amazing job at whatever they're hired to do.
Do you find that you need to educate the higher level employees why this is actually beneficial to do?
So a good third of the training is just focusing on, especially the burnout to engagement one, on what burnout is, what does it look like, and the impact of your organization. And so we talk about the impact on morale, productivity, on the physical health of employees when they go through burnout, and the impact that has on your health insurance. Like there are quantifiable things attached with burnout. And so we go through all these things to say, hey, this can be a very serious problem if left unchecked. And so let's go back, correct it, help move our employees to a state of engagement where they want to be here, where they want to give their all, where they want to give their, we call discretionary effort. And so they want to give a little bit more because they're so invested in your organization and wanting to make it successful.
You shared a couple of really valuable nuggets there. The mindset of your team is really the difference between success or failure of your company. And when you are not nurturing the right mindset, you're going to have some trouble. And it is going to be tangible. Like we're talking, you're going to see it in your bottom line, and it could create a spillover effect. I mean, it's not uncommon to have lawsuits and things like that. Now, hopefully it doesn't get to that point.
Right.
I'm curious, when you see a lot of negativity, when you see a lot of the burnout and the stress and the poor management, how often are you also seeing some destructive, maybe beliefs, expectations, the mindset of the CEO, the top level management? Are they going hand in hand?
They usually are. And so there are a lot of expectations that a CEO may have for their organization, a lot of patterns. Usually this is the pace setting leadership style where, they're going. So they expect everyone else to go to at the same rate that they're going. And so it becomes a trickle down effect of, this is the way I manage. And so my managers manage that way and their managers manage that way. And so it becomes a pattern of behavior that gets set into an organization. And I want to highlight something you said about sort of the spillover effect, not just into the legal range, but think about if you have a single burnt out employee, they're usually a little more cynical, a little depressed, they're a little ineffective. And so their performance at work begins to affect the other people who may not be burnt out, but now they have to deal with someone who's burnt out. And so their performance in their work environment becomes decreased. And usually people who are burnt out also have a higher turnover rate, so they're more likely to leave an organization. And so then once they leave the organization, then as when someone leaves, everyone has to take up the slack for that person leaving until that position is rehired again. And so now you've not only sort of had them deal with a person that's going through burnout and sort of upsetting their situation, but now they have to take on additional work because that person is no longer there. And then when you hire somebody, training a new person. So it's like this sort of cycle, a downward spiral that you keep going into if you don't address it. And so as CEOs, as leaders of organizations, you really want to make sure you're managing it by displaying the type of behaviors that really encourage engagement and suppress or mitigate burnout so that individuals can understand how they should lead the people that are underneath them. And so it really does start with the head of organizations of how you lead will be an example for all of your managers on how they should lead.
When you were talking about that, and I'm going to refer to it as a toxic employee, because it really is, it becomes toxic to everyone around them. Now, I work usually directly with the CEO in that type of situation. That is my client. I'm helping them with their mindset stuff, but it's so interesting because even when you have managers overseeing your staff, when you have toxic employees, it literally does affect everyone, all the way up to the top as well. And it's interesting too, how because of all of the negative side effects of losing an employee, needing the rest of the team to step up, that means that they're not fully performing their job duties. Then you have all of the expense that comes along with training a new employee. There's a tendency to hold on to toxic people, sometimes way longer than you should. I'd love for you to share your opinion on how that is not necessarily going to work to your advantage in the long run.
Right. And so I want to sort of separate the level or types of toxic people. There are some, I guess, toxicities that can be sort of worked with, coached, trained, sort of helps to be mitigated within the work environment and lessened. And so for those individuals, I would say work with them. Like, don't just get rid of them. So let's really dive deep into what type of toxicity you're dealing with within the organization and with that individual in particular. For those that are sort of in a little bit more toxic, coaching as well as the potential for some punitive behavior or sort of consequences behind their particular behavior. So if they continue this behavior, possibly probation, suspension, leading to eventual separation from the organization. And so giving them the opportunity with the skill set necessary to get better, to work with them, but understanding that you're working with them, but there is a potential that you may not be here if you don't sort of change that particular behavior. And then there are those behaviors that I think we've all come across that are in need of direct sort of dealing with. And you can't run and you can't hide from those. Because what happens is if you ignore that, everyone else sees, because they know what's going on. We all know what's going on at work, who's doing what. It's not a secret as much as we would love for it to be. It's really not. And so when you don't address these things, other people begin to see that, oh, they let this individual sort of behave in any kind of way. That's not really fair, because we all understand for the most part, understand what professionalism is supposed to look like at work. And so that means that I'm in an environment that's unfair. And so I don't know what else is going to happen that's not going to be fair towards me, because I see how they're not being fair towards this individual, because we all know what should happen with this type of behavior. And so it's these sort of thoughts that are beginning to germinate within people's minds based off of the actions that they see, that they may never actually articulate, but are really starting to grow, and for them to build this sentiment about the organization. And again, shifting that company culture to a place that's not effective and won't get the best out of your individuals by being engaged and being most productive at work.
Such good points. Really good points. And there are distinctions between that employee that maybe is burnt out. Maybe they're not doing the right job and it is wearing on them. I mean, let's face it, we perform at our best when we're doing what's in our genius zone. And it's no different than the business owner who's trying to wear every hat in their business and trying to do everything themselves. You're not good at everything. Maybe you shouldn't be doing your books, you know? So,
Right here.
so there comes a time when we just need to be practical about these things and recognize that if you want to grow your organization, if you want a thriving business, you have to look at where people fit, including yourself.
Yeah.
Because as business owners are growing and as they're hiring people and adding them to their team, right, we want to be bringing on the people that are going to help the business owner as well as the business up level to grow, to thrive. An employee should bring you a positive return on investment, even if it's not that they're directly out there performing sales. Them being a part of the machine, so to speak, should, in theory, and if done properly,
I love that, in theory,
should take the business to the next level, or at very least be a foundational piece of the system that allows the other people then to do their thing and make it a more profitable business. Now I have to shift gears a little bit. Okay. Because you are a business owner yourself. And one of the things that we always dig into on this show is your own personal journey as a business owner. So let's be real. None of us have it all figured out. We've all had growing pains. Can you share with us a little bit about your own mindset journey? And, again, said it before, we don't need the full autobiography, but what have you had to overcome to get to where you are?
So I think for me, so I've worked in a number of leadership roles within organizations, so large to medium to small ones, as an employee. So I was a leader in the organization. I was employed by the organization. And so the biggest shift for me was saying that I am an entrepreneur. And so to own that title, to say that, this is my business, I am going to put my heart and everything I have into it, was probably the biggest shift for me, because I had been, an employee for so long, almost 20 years working for an organization or different organizations, to then shift to saying, okay, I am going to no longer work for someone else, but move out into my own venture and really say, I am the one that's going to take control of my destiny. And so it was a pretty hard shift where you've been dependent on someone else for so long. You have HR, you have your finance team, they have their own insurance. And so I don't have to worry about any of those things because the organization handled it. To say, okay, I'm no longer going to depend on those things, but to depend on myself to be able to do those things.
It is a significant mindset shift to go from an employee mentality to a business owner mentality. And there's a lot of shifts that need to take place along the way, because we're talking about your sense of security. We're talking about everything that you had sort of grown accustomed to, and the internal culture that you had just completely shifted, like a complete 180. There is no sick days as a business owner. There's no vacation pay. If you're not out there hustling and bringing in the money, it's not just going to show up for you. If the idea, the product, the service launch is a disaster, if it was a bad idea, if it's not a marketable idea, you don't get the paycheck anyway. You know?
Yeah.
So certainly there there's a lot of inner stuff that goes on as you are really embracing the role of the entrepreneur. And I always say it is an ongoing process. You will continue to encounter your stuff as you are up leveling, and you just have to keep doing the inner work.
Definitely, like you said, it's a shift in your self-identity. And so to be able to make that mental shift on multiple levels it takes time, and I think purposeful growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So who is your ideal client? And if they're listening and they say to themselves, okay, I know I need to bring in an expert. We need to address the issues within our company culture. How do they find you? So let's first start with, who are your people?
Okay. So I'm really reaching out to mid to large organizations that have some level of hierarchy. So usually a CEO that has managers, that has frontline staff, and maybe even more levels to that. And so I'm reaching out to them to let them know there is a level of knowledge that your managers, as well as you, really sort of need to have to be able to be successful, to create that company culture that allow you to go to the next level. And so we have trainings that are available for you in different levels and that sort of fit in your time schedule. I know that sometimes you can't take off 8 hours a day to go into a full day training. And so we have some bite-sized sort of things that we can do that isn't just about sitting and listening. And so a lot of trainings nowadays are sitting and listening. I call mine workshops, because you are going to work. And I was like, do you have your pencil? Do you have your paper? Because we're going to get to work. So let's sit down and work through some of these issues. And then if you want some deeper dives, we have some consultation where we'll sit down and actually analyze the culture and what it looks like. And if there are some individuals or departments that need some closer intention and you want me to sort of work with them, I could definitely coach individuals as well as specific teams. And of course, you want to reach me, I'm at gladedsolutions.com, as well as really on LinkedIn a lot. So look up Glad Ed Solutions. I'm on there almost every other day doing something, dropping off some nugget to help your organization to grow.
Awesome. Now, when we are wrapping this up, there's always some takeaway, some like last thing that you feel inspired to leave listeners with. So share with us, what are your final thoughts? What are your parting thoughts? What do you want to leave people with?
A story. So I remember as a kid, my dad coming home, late. I'm in bed listening to him come through the door, and he comes home tired, drained, passes out. We don't see him. He sleeps most of the weekend because he's so tired. And not having him present the way that I would want him to be, because his job just took so much from him. I want organizations to really understand that the work that your employees do, that your staff does, it doesn't just impact the organization or the individuals, but it has a spillover effect into their families, into their relationships, into their community. He's not out there volunteering because he's too tired and drained. And so what can really happen of what he could have done if he had more energy because he was more engaged in his work. And so I do this to help companies, to help cultures, to engage individuals, to really make the world a better place. And so it has a much larger impact than you can even imagine if we just really understood how to make work an engaging place. We spend 8 hours a day there, 5 days a week, more than probably than any other place. So let's figure out a way to make sure that it's the type of place that feeds the souls of people so that they can go out and make the world a better place in every aspect, including your organization.
That's a powerful message. And you're absolutely right. As business owners, many of us are really, truly good people. We want to make a positive difference in the world. We want to have a positive effect, not only on our clients and customers, but on our employees as well. And when we're so busy doing the business, and many of us are extremely driven. I mean, when we started this interview, before I even pressed the play button, right, I said, I have not had a break. My husband just brought me in some coffee because he took a look at my face and clearly I was looking drained. We get caught up in the doing and we get passionate, and sometimes we forget to eat. Sometimes we forget that we need to take a break. Sometimes we forget that we need to recharge our batteries. And oftentimes we also forget that we've got to make sure that our employees are being taken care of as well. So being a little bit more mindful about what are they feeling? Are they operating at their peak efficiency? It's not just about your bottom line. It does have that spillover effect that we were talking about. It affects families. It affects children. It does have a ripple effect. We know from our own personal experience that when we are tired, when we're burnt out, when we are not taking care of ourselves, we are not the best version of ourselves for our families, for those of us that have children, for those of us that have a significant other, even just the person that we're being when we're out running our errands. So we have to take the time, we have to do the right things to ensure that we're being the best version of ourselves, and that is having that positive spillover effect. So your message is powerful. Your message is awesome. I want to thank you so much, Natalie, for spending time with us today, sharing your area of expertise, your passion, and a little bit even about your own personal journey. So with that, I want to thank you. I want to thank our listeners for spending their time with us. I sincerely hope that you walk away from this conversation inspired, whether it is for your business, for your employees, or if you are a solo business owner, or if you only have a couple of employees. It's all relevant across the board. It starts with us from the top all the way down. And I think that's an excellent way to wrap up this episode. So thank you again, Natalie. I so much appreciate you.
No, thank you. It's been an unbelievable pleasure to sit here and talk with you about this wonderful topic.
And thank you, everyone. If you haven't already subscribed, please make sure you do so. We have so many amazing experts and awesome conversations.